The Iowa Hawkeyes have been a college football staple for a long time. Not a whole lot of offense and a whole lot of defense. In my opinion, it really hasn't changed, and we will get right into that in this video, in this Iowa season preview. So make sure to like, comment your thoughts on Iowa football down below, and let's get right into it. This video will be split up into two parts. The first part will be the roster preview, where I preview the roster and every single position group and rate it on a scale of A to D. And the second part of the video will be a schedule breakdown. So let's get right into it. All right, getting into the roster preview here. As you see on your screen, we are going to start on the offensive side of the ball with the quarterback position. I have this as a C. I think that Cade McNamara is very, very average. I don't think that he's a very good quarterback. I think his ceiling is super low. I hate to be brutally honest with you guys, but I just haven't seen that much out of Cade McNamara that makes me want to say that he's really good. And he's coming off of a season-ending injury, and it just doesn't seem like Iowa's going to develop a quarterback that's actually good. And I hate to be brutally honest with you here, guys, but I really don't think that Caden McNamara is going to be very good this season. Yeah, that's really all I can say. But I think that he'll not be like Deacon Hill bad, but I don't expect him to be higher than average. So, anyway, moving on to the running back position, I have this as a B plus here, as you see on your screen. The running back room is really good, in my opinion. Caleb Johnson and Le'Shawn Williams are really good, in my opinion. I don't think they're elite, but a power two running back like that, I really like it. And what Iowa's been able to do running the ball has certainly made up for what they do passing the ball, which is an accomplishment on their own. So I really do like their running back room, in my opinion. There's a lot of experience coming back there, like I said, with Caleb Johnson and LaShawn Williams, and I really like that room. So moving on to the receiver room, the wide receiver, I kind of blended here the wide receiver and the tight end room. So this grade overall is a C. Luke Lackey coming back from injury, but he's really good. So Luke Lackey, in my opinion, a really good tight end, a really solid tight end, and that's what brings this grade up. At the wide receiver room, I think this is one of the worst wide receiver rooms in the Big Ten, but they do have a bright spot in Caleb Brown. I think that Caleb Brown is going to be a solid player, but the rest of this wide receiver room is not very good at all. And it's not like they're going to be using him excessively. It's not like they're a pass heavy team anyway. Iowa knows what they have, and they don't have elite, they don't have really good. So they're going to be using those running backs. They're going to be using the running game, and I think that's what's going to help Iowa have success on offense this season. Also, having a real offensive coordinator helps them in Tim Lester, but all jokes aside, this receiver room is pretty underwhelming. I think it's the worst in the Big Ten, but they do have a pretty darn good tight end, and I think that Caleb Brown is going to be a solid wide receiver for them. Now, moving to the offensive line, you see on your screen that I have as a potential weakness the left side of the offensive line as a potential weakness. Wide receiver and quarterback, pretty self-explanatory. Really, the only bright spot at wide receiver is Caleb Brown, and I think that he's pretty good, but he's not great. Anyway, getting back to the offensive line, the left side of the offensive line is not great. And you'll see what I mean here in a second. Their starting left tackle, Mason Rickman, he is one of the most experienced offensive linemen, but he has the lowest. Last year he had the lowest rated offensive lineman performance graded by Pro Football Focus, which was a 44, and that was out of 100 overall. And he just wasn't very good at all, and he took a significant step back from 2022, in which he was pretty darn solid. So at left tackle, not great. And at left guard, they're going to be starting Nick DeYoung. DeYoung he kind of filled in all over the place on the offensive line in 2023, but he wasn't a starter. This will be his first year starting really full time, and he'll be okay. He has some good attributes. He's 6'6", 305 pounds as a senior, but he hasn't really been good enough to start. But we'll see how he does at left guard. But I think that that's going to be a hole as well. So this is what I mean by the left side of the offensive line. If you want to run it, it's going to be to the right side of the offensive line. That's all I'm saying there, with that potential weakness being the left side of the offensive line. The right side of the offensive line is very good. Connor Colby starting at right guard, I think, is very good. And their right tackle, Jennings Dunker, is going to be pretty darn good as well. And their center, Logan Jones, is going to be one of the better centers in the league, I think. And, you know, at center, the Iowa Hawkeyes have really put out some great ones. Like their tight ends, they put out a lot of great tight ends to the NFL. They put a lot of great centers into the NFL. You look at guys like Tyler Linderbaum now with the Baltimore Ravens, and James Daniels, who's bounced around. I think he's now with the Steelers. They both came out of Iowa. They were highly drafted, and those were pretty recent as well. So you look at Iowa and in their offensive line, their left side of the offensive line needs some work, and that's why I have it as a potential weakness. But their right side of the offensive line in the center position, I think, are pretty darn good. So I have the offensive line as a whole graded as a B. Now, moving over to the defensive side of the ball, I have their defensive line rated as a B plus here. I think that they have some pretty good guys on the defensive line, but they did lose from last year's Iowa defensive line. But I do want to highlight one player that I think is going to be really good. Yahya Black, the defensive tackle for Iowa. He's going to be really good and drafted really high. You'll see why. He returned. He could have gone to the NFL. The NFL scouts told him that he could have gone to the NFL early, but he came back last year as a defensive tackle. Now, defensive tackles don't usually put up eye-popping stats, but he had 51 total tackles, 5 for a loss, 3.5 sacks, and 5 passes deflected, 2 forced fumbles to add on for good measure. And he was really good last year. Now, imagine him taking a step up, getting bigger, getting stronger as a senior, and I think that he's going to be really, really good as their defensive tackle and main staple of that defensive line. Past that, this defensive line is solid, but I can't put them any higher than a B plus, but they do have the potential to go higher. Now, this is where they are worth their weight in gold, so to speak. Iowa colored gold here. At linebacker, it's an A for me. They have two of the best linebackers in the country playing right next to each other in Nick Jackson and Jay Higgins. Jay Higgins, I think, is one of the best. I think he is the best player on this Iowa Hawkeyes team. He had 171 tackles last year, 5 for a loss, 2 sacks, an interception, and he was just everywhere on that defense. Last year was a season that was one of the most productive I've ever seen. 171 tackles. He was awesome. First team Big Ten, and he came back for another season here. And Nick Jackson is another player that is very good as well. Last year, in total, he's had 462 tackles, and he has just had an awesome career as an Iowa Hawkeye, one of the better linebackers to play for Iowa in a long, in their most recent memory. He's one of the better ones to play for the program, especially with stats like having that 460 plus tackles in his career, and he's going to have more. He's going to have over 500 tackles in his collegiate career. Just imagine that for a second. He's played for so long that, man, and he's been so good. So Iowa's linebackers, A for me. If I had an A plus, it would be A plus, but the highest I go here on these ratings is A. Lowest I go is a D, by the way. So going into into the secondary here, also got to be an A in my opinion. Sebastian Castro, one of the highest rated corners coming out of this year, so he's going to be drafted really high. He's going to be probably he's going to be a top 3 corner going into the NFL draft this upcoming year because he's just such a good player. Sebastian Castro, really a vital piece to this Iowa Hawkeyes defense. And when a lot of national pundits look at the Iowa defense and especially the Iowa secondary, I usually hear them talk about Sebastian Castro for like the whole time that they talk about the Iowa defense, especially when they talk about the secondary. But the secondary has a ton of good players. Like it's just filled with players that are going to be drafted within the first couple rounds. And I try not to grade everything based off of their future draft grades. I talk about future draft grades so much, but it's a good measure in my opinion. I'm getting off track here, but Jamari Harris, another corner. He's returning from injury. He returned from injury last year. Excuse me. He won Iowa's Comeback Player of the Year. Started 12 games over his career. 5 interceptions, 78 total tackles, and his 8 pass breakups in 2023 led the team and ranked fourth in the Big Ten Conference. He's going to have a breakout year. He's going to be up there when they talk about the best corners with Sebastian Castro. And you look at the other players on this team, Xavier Nwankpa. I hope I said his last name right, but he is elite at safety. He is one of the most dominant players on this team, and he's just really, really good. So I could go on with his secondary and these linebackers. They are just star studded. And it's why Iowa will win a lot of games this year. I'm telling you, the linebacker room and the secondary room is why they will win games this year. All right, we're moving into the schedule here. And really quick, if you have not already subscribed to the channel, it helps out the channel a ton. We are growing here at a pretty fast rate. So be one of the first 500. That's our goal for the rest of the summer, to get to 500 subscribers by the end of the summer. And if you subscribe and you're going to play the new college football game, EA Sports College Football 25, I am doing a viewers online dynasty. There's going to be it's just going to be a ton of fun. So look in the description of this video for more context. So we move into the Iowa Hawkeyes schedule here a bit. So this schedule, when you first look at it, not really that tough. The only name that jumps out at you is Ohio State. So the way that this schedule breakdown is going to work is that games that Iowa will have a 0 to 30% chance of winning as we go through them, if there be any, will be in orange as we go through. Pick'em games are going to be in that Iowa yellow. Games that I think Iowa's going to be favored in by a pretty good margin, 60 to 80% is going to be in purple. And then games that are just going to be wins, you can't stop them. They're just certified wins. Those are going to be in the lighter blue color. So let's get right into it here. All right, so we will be moving in here. I'm going to be doing 2 sections right here because I only have a couple teams that'll fit into the certified win category and the orange category. That's what I'm going to call it here. The game that I think that Iowa will not be favored in, I think that Iowa has about a 15 to 20% chance of winning this game. It's going to be at Ohio State. You're going to go into the shoe, and you can't expect to win this game. Let's be honest here. Iowa, their defense is going to keep them in this game for 2 quarters, and their offense will just not be able to score enough points, especially on that really, really good Ohio State defense. Iowa fans, don't worry. Ohio State is a virtual loss on pretty much everyone's schedule this year except for Oregon, maybe Penn State. But let's be honest here. Iowa fans, you're going to lose this game. But the certified win category, we have 2 teams. Just right off the bat, you can say that they're going to beat these teams. The Gimmies versus Illinois State and versus Troy. Now, I know Troy's been a little bit up and down, and this year they could be a little bit better. But let's be honest, Iowa's going to beat both of these teams. They have way too good of a defense to lose these games. Now, the next area we're going to look at is the games that I think Iowa will be favored in by a pretty good amount, the 60 to 80% range. We're going to look at Minnesota. Minnesota, a team that I don't think is going to be very good this year. That has been well documented on this channel. And we're just going to go right to the next one versus Washington. Washington, I think, has a decent roster, but this game being in at Iowa, at Kinnick Stadium, I think will really help out Iowa. And I think Iowa really does match up well to Washington. At Michigan State and versus Northwestern, these are 2 teams that it's hard to scope out. It's going to be hard to scope out how good or really bad they're going to be. I can't see them being as good as, Iowa, for example. I can't see them being great, but they could be a solid. Both of these teams could be solid, especially Iowa going to Michigan State with Aiden Childs. I know Michigan State got gutted a bit in the transfer portal, but Jonathan Smith is a elite head coach in my opinion. At UCLA has been hyped up a little bit. I know they brought back Ethan Garbers, but I don't think UCLA is going to be very good at all. Now at Maryland, the last team that I think I will be favored against. This game could be a little bit tricky. I don't think that Maryland's going to be that solid of a team this year, but you never know. But I still think that Iowa's going to be favored in this game. All right, last category here. Sorry, guys, for keeping you for so long. As I said before, make sure you're subscribed to the channel, like, comment your thoughts on Iowa football down below. Versus Iowa State, people are really disrespecting this game, in my opinion. I think this is going to be a really good game to watch. I think Iowa State, the Cyclones, they're a really good team this year. They are a very sneaky team this year. And I still think that Iowa has a good chance of winning, but I'm going to say that this is a pick'em game. I would say that Iowa's favored about 55 to 57%, as opposed to 45-40 three, like I would put Iowa State at. That's about where my mind is at that game. Versus Wisconsin, really tough opponent. Really versus Wisconsin and versus Nebraska. I think Wisconsin and Nebraska are virtually the same program. Not in the way that they run their team, run their offense, run their defense, but where they are as a program and how they are overall, like talent wise. I think that they're pretty much in the same spot, to be honest with you. They're like 1A, 1B when I rank them in power rankings and whatnot. If you want to check out any power rankings I've done, go to the channel, subscribe. They're all there. And so Iowa, I can see them splitting these two games right here. I can see them losing both these games right here. But let's just say, hypothetically, they split Wisconsin and Nebraska. Those games are at home, so maybe they take both of them, but I think they drop one of these. You're still looking at a 9-3, 10-2 Iowa Hawkeyes team, assuming there's no big upsets. There might be one or two, but worst case scenario here, looking like 8-4 in my opinion. So projected win total, I'm gonna put between 8 and 11 in my opinion. Here, they could go and beat everyone on their schedule except for Ohio State. I don't think it'll happen, but they could. They also could come back down to earth. Offense is going to keep sputtering. Defense maybe not as hyped up as I think they are, and go 7-5, 8-4. That's up for you guys to decide. Let me know your record predictions down in the comments. My record predictions are going to be coming out here at the end of July, early August for every single Big Ten team. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.